Hi, everybody. This is Steve Maggi from SMA Law Firm. Welcome to Building the Bridge. I'm here with Josh Goldberg from Nath Goldberg and Meyer, a patent and IP firm located in New York. Thanks for being with us, Josh.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
So one of the most important things I think in what we do as international practitioners working with clients from all over the world is being able to empathize with them, being able to understand what it feels like to be in their shoes. Could you share with us the importance of empathy in your practice and also maybe your own story?
Sure. Well, as you know, because you and I were talking, I am very internationally focused. About 50% of my business is either coming in from outside the country or involves me sending work to lawyers in other countries. And as a result of that, in the pre-pandemic days, of course, I traveled extensively because I would want to personally meet with and know all the people I was working with, whether it was my direct clients or the law firms and lawyers I work with in other countries. I needed to know who it was and what they were about that, especially for lawyers in other countries, if I'm sending my US based work to them and sending my clients and trusting my clients to their care, that they'll take care of my clients and won't make me look bad and won't put my clients in a bad position. So, I've been around the world, Japan, China, throughout Europe, down in Brazil, and every place has a different flavor. Until you've been to some of these places, it's hard to truly understand why they do some of the things they do, why they act some of the ways they act. And, it's really important to be in their shoes. I've been to international conferences, many international conferences. And for example, I bring up Japan because it's a really easy boundary line to show different cultures. Um, there's a very specific way when you're dealing with people in China that you have to introduce yourself. There's a whole ceremony of handing over your business card where you have to hand it over with two hands, point it out to them, give a little bow, actually look at the card they're giving back to you and make a little, say something about them. Even if it's just, oh, you're a partner, very good, something like that. Because if you don't follow their traditions and their cultural norms, they're not going to want to do business with you. And Japan is a place, especially, you have to go repeatedly and go often. You can't just go one time, meet somebody and expect to get work and expect them to trust you. You really have
Face to face.
you need to have that face-to-face relationship. It's all about know, like, and trust. And of course, all our cultures are know, like, and trust to some extent, but some of them are more so than others. And you really have to have that know, like, and trust if you want to do business there.
What about your own immigration story? Nobody is really a Native American except Native Americans. So what's your story? I know my clients like to hear mine so they can relate. It's a common ground that we share, right?
Absolutely. So I'm a second generation American. Three of my four grandparents were born in Europe. The fourth was born in Ohio, but her parents were from Europe. It's my maternal grandmother. The best, easiest story I have is for my maternal grandfather, where he was born in Austria, in Vienna, and lived there. He had a very large family. Some of his family had moved to New York over time, but he was still there with a good number of his family. And at some point in about 1938, 1939, obviously the political climate in Austria and throughout Europe changed quite a bit. And I'm Jewish, he was Jewish. It was not a good time to be Jewish and be there.
Of course
And
not.
of course not. And he actually, both him, his brother, and his sister who was remaining, all of them spent some time in a camp there in Austria, right outside of Vienna. And this was in the early days before things got really serious. So they were let out. But they also knew at that point that it was only a matter of time. Things were not going in a positive direction and they needed to get away wherever they can. So my grandfather and his sister were both very lucky. They found a boat that was willing to take them to New York, where he met my grandmother and they had a really good life. Had my mom and her brother, my uncle, and everything worked out. He already had a lot of family there. His older brother was lucky, less lucky, but still lucky in the sense that at that point in time, you got on whatever boat you could. Wherever it was that was not there, that's where you went. So he got on a boat that took him to Brazil. He landed in Sao Paulo. Very shortly afterwards, married or at least met. I don't remember exactly when they married. A beautiful woman Brazilian woman, started a whole wing of the family down in Brazil, to where now I have, oh gosh, it's probably up to about 22, 23 cousins, aunts, uncles, whatever in Brazil. It's a whole wing of the family down there. I've gone to visit them a few times. Granted, it's been a while, if for no other reason, pandemic. Last time I saw one of my cousins was in September 2019. They were up in New York, and I went to visit them to say hello while they were there. Because usually we see each other, at least some of the family, once or twice a year.
How
But
do you think all that color and all that background, especially having a branch of your family in another continent now, not just in Europe, but here and then in South America, how does that help you connect with your international clients?
well, number one, I always take the mentality that really it's a small world, right? No matter where you are, there are a lot of ties and relationships that go into it. So just because somebody might have a different accent or a different mannerism to them, I grew up with all those sorts of things. I grew up with a lot of people who were not born in the US around me, family members. I grew up with people who would come from Brazil to visit. So I always learned to have an ear for, okay, maybe they're a little difficult to understand, but it's not a reason to make fun of them or to ignore them. You really do have to pay attention because the US is far the only place in the world that has smart people, or people with something worth saying. I would never, ever say anything like that. And number two, I'll tell this as a joke. So if you call somebody who speaks two languages bilingual and somebody who speaks three languages trilingual, what do you call somebody who speaks one language?
American.
You got it.
There are 60 million households in the US where English is not the spoken language at home. So I think that that's changing. I
Yes.
think that not being bilingual is going to be a detriment to a lot of young Americans growing up, especially kids. So that's a whole other issue, though.
It's a whole nother issue. And actually, my kids go to a bilingual school. They're learning math and Spanish,
As they should.
as they
So,
should.
so for people who are looking for an empathetic as well as very knowledgeable IP attorney, how do they get in touch with you, Josh?
Well, Steve, as you can see to my right, I have my name, phone number, and email address. And for everybody out there, email is always the best way to contact me. I get back to emails religiously. Phone, catch me as you can. I'm doing Zooms, meetings, whatever all the time. But emails, you'll hear from me.
Fantastic. Thanks for all your time and for sharing your story with us, Josh. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Awesome. By the way, my grandparents, my grandparents on my mom's side, obviously this is all, we were already finished. They were both Hungarian Jews, but nobody in our family knew they were Jewish until after they died.
Oh, wow.
There was a rumor out there, but I went to Ellis Island. I used to take I used to bring in foreign lawyers, and I would do that once a year. We'd go to Ellis Island so they could really get an idea of what this is all about. And I finally did the search for my grandma, and it said Hungarian Hebrew as nationality. And then I did my grandfather, and same thing. They met in New York City at a Hungarian bridge club. They left in 33. 5 months apart, they got divorced and then actually got together in New York. Both came through Ellis Island, but at that time it was Austro-Hungary. So our grandparents are from the same place.
That's well, I was at a conference. This is probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I don't remember where. No, this was in not London. What was the one before London? Actually, down in Sao Paulo. Now that I think about it, and I met someone from Argentina that had my maternal grandfather's last name of Berg, B-U-R-G. And I'm like, I've never met another Berg before. There has to be a relationship here somewhere. They were from Argentina.
Uh-huh.
We couldn't find the common theme there somewhere, but I know there has to be.
Buenos Aires is the second biggest Jewish population in the world outside of Israel after New York. So
I did not know that.
yeah, it's massive.
Oh,
A lot of changed names, but
Well, and that's true in New York also. A lot of changed names.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. So what's going to happen is, as soon as I cut this off, it'll download the full archive for me. I will send a link to my editor. She's standing by. She'll break them down. I think it's pretty clear. We didn't really mess up, so it's going to be pretty easy for her to do it. And then she'll send the videos to you for you to review.
Okay,
Once you've reviewed them and okayed them, then I'll get them up, and then we can start figuring out how to market it.
that sounds great, Steve. Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
It was a real pleasure, Josh. Thank you.
Same here. All right. You have a good rest of the day.
You too.